Hi, I'm Jessica Lyons, cybersecurity editor at The Register. I'm talking with Zoë MacDonald. She's a privacy writer and researcher for Mozilla Foundation's Privacy Not Included. Zoë, nice to talk with you today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
So, some of the past Privacy Not Included reports have focused on things like connected vehicles, popular Christmas toys, reproductive health apps. And this latest one is especially juicy. It talks about dating apps and uncovered some seriously shoddy data privacy practices like we've seen in the previous ones. It found 22 of the 25 dating apps, I believe, that you reviewed earned the privacy not included label. So that's about 88%. Zoë, were you surprised by this number?
Unfortunately, no, I wasn't surprised. I think for a couple of reasons. One, dating apps are notoriously bad at privacy, unfortunately, because they're also apps that have because of the nature of dating apps, the power to collect so much super personal information about us. But the other reason that I wasn't surprised is because unfortunately, the last two guides that we reviewed were particularly bad at privacy. We had our cars research last year where every single car we looked at earned our privacy not included warning label. We also had a similar situation for AI romantic chatbots earlier this year. But I want to be clear that even though it's not surprising that they're so bad at privacy, it's no less worrisome because the status quo for a lot of connected products and apps is in the absolute toilet as far as privacy goes.
Definitely. So let's name and shame here. What were some particularly egregious apps that you came across?
Great question. To be clear, none of the apps are particularly good at privacy. We were only able to give one thumbs up, and we were happy to get that. That's for a queer-owned app, Lex. But aside from that, we basically had we took issue with certain aspects, at least, of most of the apps. If I had to name one that I thought was the worst, I would have to say Grindr, because they have such a awful history of protecting their users' information. And of course, it's also an app that is targeting a vulnerable population, which is gay men. So they should, because of that and because of their past, you would think that they would be particularly careful or make an effort to be better at privacy and security, but we're not seeing that that's the case.
What about someone like Match?
And
what about someone like Match, who they own several? What did you find with them in particular?
Match Group is not very good at privacy and security, and that's a problem because they do own so many of the dating apps. I think that if they were to step up their standards as far as security goes, as far as giving their users more rights, rights to access and delete their data, and if they would stop sharing and selling consumer data full stop, that would go such a long way to improve the status industry-wide. But they're not doing those things.
And overall, what types of user information are these apps collecting and sharing? What all does that involve?
As far as what they're collecting, it's quite vast, as you can imagine, because this is the kind of information that people are sharing in the hopes that it's going to help them find a connection with somebody. So they can collect, information about how you like your pizza, but then also intimate personal information about your family, whether your parents are divorced, a lot of detailed demographic information. A lot of the apps insist on getting 24/7 access to your live location. There's also all the photos that you share, videos, voice notes, things of that nature. So it's really a lot of data. And unfortunately, what we found is that 80% of these apps say that they can share or sell some of your personal data for advertising.
Yeah, that's always alarming.
At the same time, when they're not giving it away intentionally, we found that half of the apps actually don't meet our minimum security standards for protecting that data. And what has happened in the past is that information ends up places like it's leaked or breached or hacked or ends up in the hands of data brokers. And sometimes the dating apps can't say why or how. Right.
No, that can have some serious real world implications too. It's not just theoretical at that point. It can be dangerous. Yeah. Was there something something along those lines that you've seen in the past that this all calls to mind in terms of where this data is ending up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think they're still facing fallout. I think there was an article recently about information from Grindr and OkCupid, location information in particular, ending up for sale through data brokers, at least between the years of 2017 and 2020. And that information may still be available for sale. And you can see how that could be used against people who are using these apps.
Definitely. And with let's talk about the location data, because, you know, in a way it makes sense. You obviously probably want to find somebody in your general area if you're looking for someone to date. But also it can lead to some things that users might not be expecting, and could have some other serious privacy implications. So talk a little bit about this. Why is location such a big issue here?
Location information is such a sensitive personal piece of information because even if you're using, say, an alias, your location can be used to identify you. And I'm also dubious about the need for all of these apps to have 24/7 access to your location. I mean, they do need to know roughly where you are located or what city you live in. But I really don't think that they need to know where you are at all times. You know, some apps depend on your live location for their service, but not all of them do. And yet they all want access to that. So that is something that I would recommend people try to shut down in their app permissions.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, and as far as why that's a vulnerable piece of information, we've seen why. You know, that the article that you brought up, it can end up in the hands of data brokers. There's also a couple of apps that warn in their privacy policies. I believe Scruff, Grindr, and I know that OkCupid and Bumble had issues with this in the past as well, where either through a hack or just by manipulating the software, other users may be able to determine your exact location if you're providing the app with your geolocation. And that's obviously making users vulnerable as well to other users.
Right, and brings up more of a physical security and safety concern as well, which another thing to be concerned about. It's not just limited to the digital world here. Let's talk about AI also. You found that about half of these apps are using AI right now. I think more are planning to in the future. We've seen some investment in that lately. How are they using AI right now? And then what do they plan to add? And talk about the privacy concerns related to using AI in dating apps.
Yeah, so about, as you said, about half of the apps are already using AI, and they're using AI in a variety of ways. Everyone seems to be in a rush to integrate AI into products, whether we consumers, want them to or not. Some of those ways I think can be potentially productive or helpful, like reducing spam or detecting fake profiles. We know from our research that romance scams, for example, are on the rise, so that could be good. They also are using AI in their matching algorithms, which I'm not as sure about, just because of concerns that if not treated responsibly, those matching algorithms might replicate, real world biases, racism, fat phobia. So that does concern us a bit. But privacy wise, AI is a bit of a can of worms. We did already dip our toe into AI integrated products when we reviewed AI romantic chatbots earlier this year. And it's a bit of a privacy minefield because of AI's need for data and data consumption. And so we just always have worries about what data is being used for training, whether users have the opportunity to opt out of having their data used, and just how that all works. It's staggering how little information that consumers have access to when these products are integrating AI. And as you said, we found, two of the major players and two of the groups that we're most concerned about, Grindr and Match Group, have both stated their intention to invest in AI in the future. So basically, we don't necessarily trust them to tackle that integration with the kind of care that they would need to really ensure that their users' agency is respected and that their privacy is protected.
Right. Match actually has a partnership with ChatGPT, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So what's the takeaway for dating app users? What should people do if they're looking for love but don't want all of their data out there in the open?
I think the biggest thing is probably to just be conscious of the information that you're sharing with the app and only share information that you would be comfortable making completely public. Like if you wouldn't want your boss to read it, maybe don't share that information with a dating app. The other thing I would suggest is, so limit what you share is number one, and then number two, kind of lock it down and keep it as contained as possible. So definitely go to your app permissions. If you can, if the app lets you, turn off that live location, turn off access to your whole phone library if that's something that they're trying to get access to. Just limit what you share on the device level as well. And then the third thing that I would say, or second, as far as like keeping it locked up, is don't connect your other accounts, like your social media or other third-party accounts, to your dating app, because that just gives those two apps an opportunity to kind of exchange information about you.
Right. And that, as we've seen in the past, that usually doesn't end well for the user. So Zoe, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And thanks everyone for joining us. We'll see you next time.